issue of the Electoral Act amendment or the amendment to the Electoral Bill, which the president sent back to the National Assembly, and hopefully a lot of people are now clamoring that the National Assembly should do something fast on it on Tuesday when they resume. That's tomorrow. But that forms part of our conversation tonight. Another matter related to that is the issue of the appointments of the top officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. There are indications that substantial members of the board of the commission would retire from the service. Already, there has been a vacuum created as a result of the resignation of one of the national commissioners, Engineer Abubakar Nahushe, who resigned after the 2019 general elections. The worries in the commission are that only 5 national commissioners will be left after 5 of them must have bowed out from service instead of the 12 members statutory in the board. The vacuum is not only the concern here, but the effective replacement of the hands there, the change of guard. To take a look at these issues tonight, I'm being joined on the program by the chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, Senator Karibi Rugaya. Also, is a former director at INEC, Mr. Oluwole Osazi Uzi, who is also a lawyer. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you for being
here. Happy New Year. It's good to see you physically. The other time, it was so difficult to get you virtually. But thank goodness that we have you now.
Thank you. Looking for it. Congratulations for the marriage.
Thank you so much, Senator. I think it's fair to ask you, Senator, and to get your commitment, because each time I like to get your commitment when these amendments to this bill started, and several times all the work that's been done, we try to get updates from you. You're going to resume tomorrow. Is there any plan by the National Assembly or your colleagues to work on this bill tomorrow?
Well, certainly, by God's grace, we are resuming back tomorrow to the preliminary, and we are going to, definitely the matter will be brought up on the floor. The Senate President will now reply to the letter from the President to the committee. There's a joint committee, both the House and the Senate, that worked on that, on the conference committee, and that was what we passed the President. So they will reply to us again, and we'll look at it, and then we'll advise the National Assembly or the Senate or the House so that they can now decide on what to do.
There were conversations yesterday. Of course, there was a special program in that respect yesterday. And a lot of worries and concerns came up as to the work the National Assembly did. A lot of sleepless nights. But of course, there are balls were dropped at some point, which raised a lot of concern into whether or not the National Assembly placed attention to some of the details.
I believe this is a bill that had more publicity in this country. The press have tried them best.
Because of the importance, isn't it?
In enlightening the people, and it's because of the importance. So we have been on the bill for over 2 years, and finally we came to what we have. The INEC itself submitted about 36 proposals, of which we took 25, and the rest made some amendment to them. During public hearing, a lot of proposals were brought up. So it's a bill that is very, very important to the development of democracy in Nigeria. The things we put there will definitely increase the free and fair elections, the chances of having free and fair and credible elections.
So the question is that, are you and your colleagues willing to take up the compromise of the direct primaries, which will add popularity of vote with the lawmakers? Now the president has sent it back. Are you willing to do that? And people are asking the question that you should urgently do that.
I believe we'll urgently do what is needful. First of all, the president raised objections, and we need all our committee members to look at it. And if we still stand by vetoing it, then we should. But that depends on the number. We must have the number to veto the president on any bill.
Is overriding the president's veto?
You need a number.
Your consideration.
It is in the consideration. If we bring to the floor, either we veto or we agree on his suggestion. These are the only 2 options we have.
You need to.
But we need to pass that bill. Yeah, we need to pass the bill. It's very important. Otherwise, we have difficulties in running the 2023 elections, certainly. Because the instance we are introducing the bill will enhance the democratic system in this country. But if we say because of simply one item, which is direct primaries or no direct primaries, then we throw the bill away, I think it's not in the interest of the country.
Mr. Osazi-Uzi, you have helped in conducting elections with your work in INEC. How crucial will the work of the lawmakers? What do you expect them to do tomorrow, for example?
Well, thank you. I expect that they will prioritize consideration of that bill. And there are basically, as far as I'm aware, only two options. A consideration of whether they have the numbers to override the president's veto, or comply with, look at his observations, examine his observations, and as Senator Gaya says, do the needful. In other words, agree to what those observations, and they are well-founded, agree to those observations, and then return the bill expeditiously to the president, so that the focus will now be on the president. You refuse to sign the bill in the last National Assembly. Please, you have made these observations. We have considered it. We agree with you. Kindly, it's submitted for your consideration. And I expect him to do that expeditiously, because he has always said that the president always said he wants to leave an enduring, credible electoral process to the country. This is a good opportunity for him to match his words with action.
So if you look at the bill and you look at our electoral process right now, it seems that we started to see some improvement. Yeah. But how critical is this amendment to the process?
Well, it is very critical. Unfortunately, so many controversies have dogged this process of electoral reform regarding this bill. And unfortunately, very often, that has been actually the case, historically speaking. Don't forget that INEC, for example, took the National Assembly to court in 2002, after they passed the 2001 bill and made it 2002 Electoral Act, which had to be repudiated after the court struck down certain clauses. The Abia State government has taken National Assembly to court over the issue of local government elections and legislative or local government elections. So each cycle, almost every cycle, has been dogged with sometimes needless, sometimes needful controversies. And unfortunately, this has not been spared. And he's right, the guy is quite right. I think there's been so much consideration, time, efforts, and resources given to the consideration of this this time around. And don't forget, we seem to have forgotten that this is the bill that is trying to introduce and inject a lot more technology into the process, arising from the Supreme Court decisions on the use of carrier data, the use of technology, and how they contradict the extant Electoral Act. So that seems to be in the distant past. When you look at a rear view mirror, it seems to be in the distant past. But that is what it's trying to cure. That's one of the things that it's trying to cure. The Kogi debacle, with the death of a candidate before the conclusion of the process, it's trying to cure that. Timelines for doing things is also trying to cure that. Those things are still in the bill, but because they have been overshadowed by more recent controversies, those things are in the back burner.
One of the things that I hope that, that it may not cure is the benchmark for the election spendings, which rather than when people complain that there's too much money being spent on elections, this bill is actually looking into spending more. And people are asking, Senator, that why would you raise the spending? Rather than reduce it, you're raising it.
You have to spend, you have to now rate it based on what is the current situation in this country. What amount can you use to buy this? For example, in those days when less money were used, 5 naira was something else to give to an electorate to vote for you. But these days you give 1,000 or plus. So it means the rate, because of the rate, it's unfortunate for us because so much of politicians are desperately trying to win election, either by crook or by enemies. But in most cases where we're making amendment on the electoral act is to improve a free, fair, and credible election, to make sure that people vote those who think can work for them, but not those people who paid for money to win elections. So certainly a lot of things have been put a guideline to stop that. Even the issue, we're trying to have another bill coming up, the Electoral Offences Commission, which includes also penalty on using money during elections or creating violence on the day of the election or any other sorts of means to make sure they circle the election. All those, there are laws to that. Or even posting an electoral officer to announce result on duress. All those are covered in the bill. What should be done if that happens and what INEC is supposed to do. So we have a good bill, but unfortunately, we should not now throw the bill away by simply saying direct or indirect primary. We put over almost 200 clauses, new amendments on this bill in order to go along with the current situation of political dispensation in this country and how best we can encourage people to have good, fair, reasonable play in politics.
I know you're a key player in the process.
Thank you.
And I know the issue of ego will come up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Will the National Assembly bury ego on the altar of national interest?
I believe the National Assembly will do what is ever in good and in the interest of the country.
We know that, that you
You
are in
know,
the
so
interest
it's
of
not a matter
Nigerians
of,
there.
it's not a matter
But the
of
question
ego.
is that will you bury the ego on
Because
the altar of national
the ego
interest?
is based on the number of people and who have agreed to work on this bill. We all agree that we are going for direct primaries, and we passed that one. It went to the president, it came back. All other caucuses of each party are having meetings. The APC caucuses, the other party caucuses, even the PDP caucuses are having meeting on their stand. So it will now reveal itself tomorrow.
The reason why I'm asking the senator is because some people have the opinion that it's a long walk to say you want to override the president's veto.
It is
Now,
a long
why
walk, but
instead of going through, and we don't have the time.
No,
Those are some of the issues.
No,
that
if we are committed to veto, it doesn't take time. It's only to call names and
there's a historical antecedent to those kind of things.
Position.
Am I wrong? I mean, since I've been joined by Professor Anthony Kila, thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. I don't know, I mean, the conversation, Mr. Oluwale Azaziuzi, historically speaking, overriding the president's veto has not come easy, has it?
Well, it doesn't come easy, but if we agree this is the stand and the National Assembly has the number to veto, we can. But if we don't have the number, there's not so much we can do.
Is it practically on the table?
Yeah, it is possible.
But
it depends on the numbers.
For it, with the electoral
you know,
as well.
you remember during the NDDC, the National Assembly vetoed the president and passed the bill, and the National NDDC is working now. So there's nothing wrong. That's not a new thing. But it all depends on what all of us agreed with. If we now, most of us say this is what we want, and then later some people are convinced that that stand may not work, that may create problems, or then that may be a different issue. But I believe we're on stand, and I don't know what might happen tomorrow. But I believe the bill will be passed on the floor.
The red chamber tomorrow will be hot, we suspect. The green chamber might a bit be greener than expected tomorrow. Prof, what are your expectations when the lawmakers resume tomorrow?
Well, I think the senator is spot on. It's a matter of will. It's not a matter of ego. If people deliberately, rationally, in conscience and in knowledge, make a choice that this is the law they want, the burden is on them to be consistent. The founders of democracy did not believe in good faith. They made a law saying that legislator make a law, president sign. And where the president goes against the will of majority, majority just needs to find the force to stand up and say, look, we have the numbers. If they don't have the numbers for any reason, that's a different reason. It's not a difficult thing to do. And I do think that those who are elected, charged and paid and respected to make laws should be called upon to make laws in knowledge and in conscience every time, if that is what they've said. I don't think it's a big problem if that happens. We expect distinguished senators, honorable members, to stand up to be distinguished and honorable when they come back by following through what they've raised their hand up and their voices and their signatures to before.
Mr. Ozazuzi.
Well, there are antecedents for the overriding of the president's veto, even with Electoral Act and several other bills. But I expect that wise counsel will prevail in the circumstances of this bill. Don't forget, although there was widespread consultation, the clause to which the president objected to was not actually a clause that was right there ab initio. It was not there. It was not that consideration. I went for several public hearings. It wasn't there. It wasn't even part of what was considered for the joint committee. It came in later. I don't know why it did, and but it did. And for some of us, enough safeguards are not there in that clause. If you have direct primaries, you must have proper register of voters, proper register of members.
If I may come in, there is that procedure. If you are going direct primaries, each party must have registered members or a register for members. And that when the direct primary is going to hold, they will go through the registered numbers and names and then allow those people to now vote.
And there were timelines for that as
there is timeline also. Secondly, also, INEC is to supervise that thing. So I believe we have taken a proper way of how the primaries
Sorry, sir.
can be the
INEC
laws.
is to observe. It has no role to supervise. It cannot
No,
supervise or
I
supervise
see.
any. And secondly, what you provided in that clause was for guidelines to be issued to aspirants, not the register of members
No, no,
entitled to
no.
vote.
You better check the law. We
Okay,
set
sir.
guidelines, and then also the register. They have to
Will
also
be
check.
used. He said it will be
The
used.
register will be used. If the register are going to be
Yes.
used, that means there is no way they can have election without the register.
No, I mean, why the reasons the president gave
Yes.
were they tenable? I mean,
I think-
logistically speaking,
No,
he gave security,
yeah.
economic, and logistics reasons for it.
I think those are political reasons. They are ideological reasons. It's a way to say, this is what I think about it. If we want to follow the president's reason thoroughly, regardless of the merit, if we want to say, because of logistical reasons, because of economic reasons, because of security reasons, then let us abolish elections totally. You know, if you really want to follow that true. I think in an age and time, the essence of humanity is to deal with situation. If we have economic issues, if we have logistics issue, and we know what is sacred, then we should find a solution to them. Not say because of the problem, we won't move forward. I think it would have been easier to argue that I think it's better to do indirect primaries. It's a legitimate ideological political position to take. And I don't know why
For those who also say that you can't foreclose other options. Give
I think that's
a
one of the reasons the
multiplicity.
president
Let
said
it be
that,
democratic. I've asked you this question, Senator.
let it be democratic.
I foresaw that there was going to be problems, Senator. For
But
some of us who have been here, we've been here. And for some of us, when we say this kind of
But
thing,
we have
it
been
does look like a prophecy.
We have been in this game,
But Senator,
so
we are here today.
we find that that's the easiest way. We have been in this game. We know that when you do indirect primary, it also creates a lot of problems. And when you do consensus, it's also being dictated by leaders of that party at that time, not maybe the wish of the people. So we thought that the issue of direct will now solve that problem.
Yeah.
And that means taking democracy down to the grassroots.
But taking the democracy to the grassroots, I'm not sure whether I'm right or wrong.
Why are parties,
you're also shutting out other options.
Why are
because
parties
democracy,
calling,
they say, gives opportunity for
why are parties calling
opinions
for members to register in their parties? So that when these members register, they will have an opportunity to now use the register to vote for their leaders. So that's the advantage. I think there is a need to entrench this democracy down to the grassroots so that people can be able to vote their leaders or select their leaders.
We have just about 60 seconds before we go on a break, and I want us to start a conversation that we will pick up after the break. Yeah. And it's about the vacuum that will be left in INEC. Yeah. 5 of the national commissioners, instead of 12, then also some of the national, some of the recs also needs to be vacuum that need to be appointed. Yeah. You are the one overseeing or oversighting INEC in the National Assembly. Why this vacuum?
Well, first of all, most of them, the appointment turn are down this time. The previous appointment, they are now due for renewal. And the president has sent us 6 names, of which out of the 6 names, 2 was served in the national, or 3 of them served in INEC. One as national commissioner, one as resident electoral commissioner, another one as a staff of INEC. The others are new, but I believe as soon as we resume, we even have a date that 25th of this month, we are going to invite all the new nominees for screening into our committee, so that they can come. As soon as we screen them, then they can simply go back to their job.
So is the screen, are the nominees complete?
They will
complete
they will be complete. We have the 6 there.
Let's wrap up quickly on the issue of the appointment to the board of INEC.
Yes, you are saying that there will be controversies. Of course, certainly for every appointment in the country, there are people who are pro and who are against. So those who are against will certainly set up a petition, and we have received a few petitions here and there. But
already on the nominees?
Yeah, it depends on the merit of those petitions. We'll look at them, because we have used to that. We get petitions, people write all sorts of things. Simply they don't like your face, or you are not from the state, or you are not from zone. They tend to go against you. I think there's need more for Nigerians to be accepting nominees. Unless this person is corrupt, that's the basis of which you will now write petition against those things. But not saying that he is not my tribe, he's not from this.
Senator, are there old names, old hands that are being brought back, or there are fresh people that are being...
No, well, this time I think this government of President Barry is doing a bit better than before, because in those days, they always put fresh new ones. And this time, the president is renewing some members so that you can have the old hands on board. Like even the national chairman is serving his second term. Then we have 2 other people among these nominees who are coming in as second term. One is national commissioner, that's I think Mrs. Umbu, and then another guy, gentleman, who was a REC member and now he promoted to a commissioner. Then there's another gentleman who also works in INEC. He is a staff of INEC and now being promoted to, or at least appointed as a commissioner. So I think we have 3 out of 6, and the remaining 2 new, or 3 people are new. So I believe that there will be a blend of the old and the new, the experience and the just coming in person, so that that thing can be put together. And I think they can do better more. We haven't lost much Beckham, and I think we still have those talent. All of them are professors and talented people, and I believe they can do a lot of good job.
Of course,
but
when I say controversy, people
but somebody sent
are...
a petition that why are we putting professors in INEC? Why don't you think of other people? Why all professors? So that's another petition, you know.
I mean, it does look like this dragged for too long to fill those vacuums. What are the implications of leaving those positions without being filled?
Well, first of all, let me commend the president this time around, because don't forget that in the last cycle, it was a much, much longer time, actually.
Yeah.
I think the tenure of the 5, 6 people expired less than 2 months ago.
No,
so
December.
In December, actually. So it's not as if there's been a long delay in filling that vacuum. But the last time it was several months. In fact, don't forget that at one time, we only had 3 national commissioners, 1 chairman and 2 national commissioners under Professor Iwu. After Jumari, National Government Jumari tenure expired, we only had Shoyebi and Philip Umeadi. So we only had 3 people for quite a while. And later on, even 5 years ago, or 5.5 years ago, we also had this problem where for several months, almost a year, there was nobody. It's important because it's an election year, and we have barely 1 year to the election, especially with the new people coming in. It's going to be extremely difficult for them to bed in, to settle properly, to understand the process. It takes more than 1 year for people coming in fresh to understand INEX processes, the guidelines, the laws, and things like that. The most perceptive of people take a better part of 2 years, actually, to begin to understand how things work, the administrative structure, and getting to know the people who they are working with. And that's so critical. The human factor as well. It takes a long, long, long time, no matter how perceptive or how good you are, or the good grasp. So it's a good blend, as Senator Gaya said, it's a good blend to have the old and the new. And I think they will do reasonably well. But where we disagree is that he says, except there's corruption. No, the Constitution is very clear on the qualifications for membership of the company. One, you must be a person of unquestionable integrity. And if you don't have integrity, of course, if you're corrupt, you have integrity. If you don't have integrity, even if you're not corrupt, if you don't have integrity, you shouldn't be appointed to the board. You meet the age requirements, and you should be non-partisan. That's one of the amendments to the Constitution. You should be non-partisan.
Yeah, because
that is why the former lady who was nominated from Delta State was dropped, rightly so. And I must commend the National Assembly for hacking to the demands of Nigerians. Look, we want...
There are more of the controversy as to whether or not there are political stooges who are coming into, and I'd like Prof to speak on that.
Well, yes, there are voices that some of the appointees are affiliated to political parties. And here the senator is right. Let me join them in saying it is true that the process is faster this time around. They expire in December, nominating them down. It's normal. That's the way it ought to be. So that's a good thing for that. But I also think the senator gets it when he says that no matter what you do, there will be a petition. Mind you, it's not a bad thing. That's the essence of democracy, that people should express themselves. I think people have a right to scrutinize and complain about what they don't like. And I think those nominating have the duty to bear in mind that this petition will come. So as a result, in nominating people, in proposing names, they should make sure that those names not only fit into the listed requirement as dictated by the Constitution and good practice, but also to be politically acceptable, so that they do not appear in any way, shape, or form to be influential or influenceable to a part or the other. This country has, we say 200 million people, at least 50 million possible for this kind of job, realistically. It is not difficult to find independent people. But I also think there's something wrong. I understand very well when the director says that it takes a long time for them to acquaint themselves with the system. But I think there's something wrong with a system where it takes you 2 years to familiarize yourself with it, and your tenure is 4 years. Perhaps we need 5 years.
No, it's 5 years.
It's 5 years. You can't learn for 2 years, after 3 years, and go home. We also need to think about that kind of situation.
More time on the job.
Perhaps more time or make the system simpler. Doesn't have to be
I
more
think
time.
because of their qualification, the time for learning is less than 2 years now. When you are in the system, a professor served for many years in the government and other agencies.
Yes.
Coming to INA, you should know the job you are supposed to do, and you should learn it within a year.
We're totally out of time on this conversation, but since you're a chieftain of the APC, this controversy about your party's national convention, any word on that? What are you hearing?
Well, I want you to know that politics is full of turbulences.
Yeah.
And when you go into those turbulences, we can always get across it. I'm sure we'll land well and we'll be able to get to the end of it. And
Is it 26th of February sacrosanct?
I believe so. We're working on that. If the party decides to change, be it. But I'm saying that we must have this convention within a reasonable time.
What are the issues of zoning that they are talking about in your party? Have they talked about? What are you hearing?
The party is also discussing on that, though. I'm not the one that gives you opinion on what the party decides, but all I know is that the party is working. I'm a member of the caucus, so definitely I'll be part of
You know, when we have influential people in the party like you, we try to get some information.
No, sometimes you don't leak the information of your party earlier than the party's decision.
Senator Kabiru Gaya, former Kano State Governor and the chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, my brother.
Mr. Oluwole Osazuzi, our very good friend, who was almost here every other day because of elections, but now we'll see more of you. Let's assume now that you are our election expert. Thank you so much, Mr. Wale. And Professor Anthony Kila, also a very good friend of the house, a development expert. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.